Campaign period shall run immediately after registration commences from the 29th of May to the 6th of August 2022. But as for us as a commission, we shall enforce the law, and we have no reason to depart from these provisions.
That is the chair of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, Mr. Chebukati, issuing some directives. And of course, it was during this week that we saw those numbers whittled down. At some point when we heard 55 presidential aspirants who'd gone through the first line of vetting with the registrar of political parties, and then there are now 16 this week, yes. 8 independent and 8 political party presidential aspirants. Remember, they are still aspirants until that formal nomination exercise that starts on the 29th of May up until the 6th of June. 6th of June, when they will now become candidates. So, Jamila,
it's been interesting,
hasn't it?
Yes.
You know, complete with talk of certain aspirants being abducted, and you know,
that was interesting,
and their papers stolen. I mean, it's really proving to be an uphill task to meet the requirements to run for office.
In fact, Yvonne, from Monday they had almost like a pre-nomination event that was by IBC, and of course some of the major candidates were not there, but they sent representatives. And then I remember there was a huge debate in terms of now the requirements that they were supposed to have met, so that they are able to go to the next stage, which is now that process that starts between 29th and 6th, which I remember having covered several elections. Is a big deal when you have presidential candidates with all their supporters. It used to happen at KICC where they would come with their 1 million, it used to be 1 million signatures and cartons, and it's a big deal. And then until that, so that starts from 29th to 6th. And of course, 55, as you said, was a huge number. I mean, how are they going to manage? So you need to start unachuja polepole. So that was the chujing that started on Monday. And there are those who just left it that same Monday. And the ones who wanted to continue had the complaint of saying, well, they're required to have at least 2,000 signatures or endorsements from at least 24 counties.
So that's a total of
48,000, accompanied by ID copies. Each signature should have an ID copy.
So that's 48,000 photocopies.
Yes. And then now, of course, they complained about how difficult it was, and they thought, okay, mnaongeza siku mbili until Wednesday to do that. And of course, that happened on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I remember yesterday the story that was done by Brenda about how these aspirants or their representatives were coming there with, of course, these boxes of the signatures, and they said, first thing, it was very expensive to be able to even just photocopy 48,000 copies, because you needed a bit, some more kidogo, zaidi kidogo, not exactly 48,000, because the verification exercise is starting soon. Na huenda a few of those IDs ama signatures zikatokomea and they'll not be valid. So they said that was really difficult for them. It was very expensive, but it is the requirement. You set the standards ama the bar a bit high, so that you are able to get those who genuinely want to run for the presidency of this country. The bigger parties easily crossed all these hurdles. There were all these other steps, but this was one, the one for the signatures was one that caused a lot of conversation, a lot of complaints among the aspirants. So what next? Now that wamechujwa, wamebakia 16, 8 from parties and 8 independents, the next step now is verification of all those
and even
documents.
That might be whittled down further.
It may be whittled down further,
knows?
What we know for now is that the Kenya Kwanza presidential aspirant William Ruto will go now for his nomination on 4th of June, and then the Azimio la Umoja candidate Raila Odinga will go on 5th of June. So those two at least we know. We just need
I believe Jimmy Wanjiki is on the 6th, right?
And you need to remember that Kalonzo Musyoka was among those. His deputy, his running mate, Andrew Sunkuli, was the one who was there at this meeting with the IBC yesterday when we did the story. His signatures had been delivered very early in the morning before even our crew were able to catch who actually deposited those documents there. But as far as IBC is concerned, Kalonzo Musyoka of the Wiper Party is an aspirant, and he's probably wamemorodhesha, wameweka kwa list ya siku yake yenye ataenda kuwasilisha stakabadhi zake. But very interesting, Yvonne.
Yeah, but remember, it's the 29th of May to the 6th of June. And knowing the politics that we have seen, particularly with Kalonzo Musyoka, anything can change between now and the 6th of June. Who knows? We'll wait to see, especially once he returns from a trip outside the country. But Lena,
he's in the UK.
Yes, he's in the UK. That's right. Lena, so the wheat is slowly being separated from the chaff. And I think what's interesting for me now is we're now starting to see the emergence and the more prominent role being played by the electoral management body. It's been about coalition building, who's where, who's what, who's in which alliance, and the building and the reconstruction of the same. But now this is IEBC's moment, stepping into the light of this process with about 70 odd days to go.
Absolutely, and the IEBC will come armed with election rules and election laws and nothing more. And remember when Chebukati spoke, having been requested by especially independent candidates to extend time for the collection and submission of signatures, he said, okay, I'll give you up to Wednesday. Beyond that, I can't help you. And Chebukati and his team have actually been quite magnanimous with the political players. Remember, this favor to because you should call it a favor, any extension of a deadline is a favor. Remember with the main political parties, especially the coalitions, Kenya Kwanza and especially Azimio la Umoja, they also had to extend the date for the submission of names of running mates. Yeah. Now, there are few things that Chebukati and his team cannot change. One of them is the election date. It's set for the 9th of August, Tuesday. Already. It's been gazetted. It is in the Constitution. You can calculate every 5th year which Tuesday that will be. And that is immovable. It's cast in stone. But also, working backwards, the IEBC will then realize that it must do certain things at specific times. Beyond that, they will also put themselves in trouble. Remember, there'll be the printing of ballot papers, which is quite a big exercise. But in the past few days, you've also seen just how heavy the task of clearing presidential aspirants can be. It started the other day with the submission of independent symbols, and we were treated to quite an interesting array of symbols by political independent aspirants. Francis, you may remember there was anything from a zebra to
a chimpanzee.
There was a chimpanzee.
There was the shaver.
Yes, and there was even I think I saw a bed.
Kuna kitanda, by the way.
Kitanda ilikuwa simple, man.
And a smile.
Yes, and why independent candidates are forced to go that length? It's because the law is also very strict in trying to separate the symbol of one candidate from the other, so that they don't have similar symbols. Common symbols like animals, lions, things like torch that used to be famous in the single party era were all taken. So you have to be really creative in getting a party symbol. Basically, the IEBC has a very strict timeline to work with, and I think from Sunday, when they start the official formal clearance process, to the 6th, it will run like clockwork. There'll be very little that politicians can achieve in terms of negotiations with the IEBC from now going on, because the time cannot be stretched. We strictly have a very short time, almost just over 2 months to the election, and the IEBC cannot afford changing things. That's why the nomination process, the formal nomination process, will actually start on Sunday and end Monday the week after. And what we expect to see, and Yvonne, you saw the numbers starting to really decline, is because the clearance process is not easy. It's not easy to run for president.
Yeah.
Simple things like raising the signatures. I've seen many of us talking of 48,000. That is the minimum, that's the lowest. Yeah. Because it's about 2,000, at least 2,000 signatures
in from 24 counties.
Yes, yeah. A majority of counties, so that would make it 24. How many independent candidates can actually go around in 24 counties and get their names here? So this is designed, it is by design, it's not by accident that it is difficult to run for president, because position of president is a position of popular choice. You really have to get the majority of people in the country agreeing with you. Remember, even those who get cleared to run will still have to make past the 50+1 mark, because they want to make sure that the person who becomes president is the absolute choice of the majority of people. And it starts with the nominations, where you really have to prove. If you can't raise 2,000 signatures in 24 counties, you want to become president of what country?
I look at it this way. LK is trying to be modest, but put it plainly. The presidential election is a big boys game, plain and simple. And the test is very structured.
Careful, there's a very big girl currently in the presidential.
Big boys and girls. Okay. It is so amended. Big boys and girls game. Why do I say so? Because, one, the structure of the clearance process is so strict, so rigid. I mean, if you can't marshal just 2,000 people in at least 24, in each of the 24 counties, then where do you expect to get votes? We have 22.1 million registered voters currently. Even with the cleanup of the voter register, it will not go so much below 21 million or thereabout. If the assumption is that you work with absolute numbers, you're expected to get at least 10 million votes to be president. If you can't raise 48,000 signatures of people who are backing your presidential bid, so where do you expect to get 10 million votes, number one? Number two, the argument that it is expensive to get signatures and copies of 48,000 people, where will you get resources to have 53,000 agents monitoring your numbers in the polling stations? Because probably we may end up with those number of polling stations. So it's a big boys and girls thing. It's also a very expensive affair, truth be told. And I've had people call them jokers, that it is also an attempt to eliminate jokers from the presidential race. Maybe it's not a very kind word to use, because every person, every Kenyan has a right to seek an elective seat of their choice as long as they are qualified. But this presidential election cannot at the same time be an everybody's game. You know, we can't have a scenario where you have 10,000 people of 60 people vying for the presidency. You will end up with a booklet for a ballot paper or something like that.
And that means every voter will take, what, a couple of minutes in that booth,
well, everybody is desirous of a big position like the presidency, but that is the ideal situation. The reality of it is that not very many of them will qualify. And so you will see a lot of crying this week and next week, because quite a number of people are going to be eliminated from the process. Watachujwa. And it will be very brutal. Brutal in the sense that this is also an opportunity for you to present your academic papers. Some of them will be knocked out on that technicality, that probably they will present degrees, certificates of universities that are not accredited or recognized. Secondly, the signatures, of course, will not make sense. Quite a number of people will be knocked out on that technicality. And so you will have a lot of people giving all manner of excuses. A, B, C, D happened, that's why I couldn't get these signatures, and so on and so on and so forth. But maybe moving forward, I saw the number of independent candidates rising. Maybe it tells us something, that probably there are people who fear political parties and political parties' nominations and the domination by the big boys and girls in ownership of political parties and management of the same parties. So maybe it's a good discourse that we have been introduced to on the question of independent candidates. But on the presidential election, I'm sorry, quite a number of people who are desirous of that position, a number of them will be just like us, voters.
Let's talk about somebody else who is desirous of that position, or maybe not, we're not sure, but you know, he's certainly sending all the right signals, and that is Kalonzo Musyoka, who has at least so far indicated his intention to run for president on a Wiper ticket. But then something interesting happened over the last week or so. Azimio, Wiper, are they in Azimio? Are they not? Are they being backed by Kalonzo Musyoka or not? Where is that happening? I would like us to listen to the Member of Parliament for Kathiani constituency. That's Honorable Robert Mbui. talking about the fact that, okay, we are willing to come back to Azimio. Watch this.
We all know that the position of President and Deputy are off the table under Azimio One Kenya Alliance. That we are aware. But what we are saying is that there could be other ways by which this party can participate fully in government, even outside those two positions. That is what we want to know. What is in need for Wiper Democratic Movement? Not our party leader, and I want that to be clear, because people have made it look like it's a Kalonzo issue. It is not.
So we shall see whether it is a Kalonzo issue or it is not. He's set to return maybe in the next few days, perhaps over the course of the weekend. You know, we hosted his running mate, Andrew Sunkuli, here on Newsnight, and he was saying they're firmly in the race. But guess who else is firmly in the race?